See Beneath Your Beautiful podcast is raw and intimate, sometimes funny, and always entertaining. With new episodes every Saturday, Hara explores our loves, fears, and hopes with a delicious combination of depth and lightness.
Well, hey, I am so excited to be here. I am Catherine Grace O'Connell, the founder of Forever Fierce Midlife Matters, a wonderful global community, and also the creative behind Catherine Grace O, my wonderful blog, which is all about helping women master modern midlife, which is also the name of my podcast, Mastering Modern Midlife. And my media production company now is Mod Life Media. And, I'm inspired and empowered really to help women master modern midlife, which is really about mastering themselves, their inner world, passionate about inspiring and empowering women at midlife and beyond to see aging in a really positive, beautiful light. Delighted to be here. I started on social media in the summer of 2015, and this was a way really of healing myself from late-stage Lyme disease that I had for over 10 years, what the doctors traced it back. So I was diagnosed in spring of 2014. By 11/11/14, I had a near-death experience and I survived it. And I was really confused as to why I was here and why I survived. I really had suffered a lot in this life. I thought I was ready to go, but I clearly wasn't. So I stayed, and my daughter said, "Hey, Mom, I think you need to start an Instagram." And I was like, "What's Instagram?" She's telling me hashtags. I'm like, "You're talking Greek. I don't know what you're talking about." So she literally pulled out her iPhone. She said, "Mom, go in your closet, put some clothes on," because fashion was really lit my fire. Of course, they would fall off me because I was 30 pounds lighter, but it gave me, a little bit of a purpose. And I started sharing my story on Instagram initially, and then over on Facebook. And I had hundreds of people reaching out. And so before I knew it, I was launching a blog. And then as I enter the blogging world, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Why aren't women over 50 connecting with each other? Why aren't we helping each other? Why isn't there a community? So I decided to start that. And that was the launch of the Fierce 50. And united a whole bunch of wonderful bloggers all around the world. And that went viral. And then I launched my media production company and started working with national brands and creating amazing content all about showing a new way of getting older and a beautiful light. So that then I launched the community, and it was the Fierce 50, then it changed to Forever Fierce, and now it's Forever Fierce Midlife Matters. We took the age off because we had so many younger women saying, "Hey, what about us?" That was 4.5 years ago, starting the community. And, things have just evolved into hosting live events. As you know, you've been there pre-pandemic, and we will get back to that. Yeah, my hands are in lots of little pots right now, and I'm working on a book and a TED Talk next. So there's always something that I can be working on.
What magazine were you just featured in?
Got a 2-page spread in Women's Day. They're all about celebrating women at all ages. So that was a huge win and a huge dream since I was a young girl.
One of the things about this podcast that I like is that it offers people hope. And you kind of glossed over the Lyme disease. Explain to me what it is exactly, and will you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was sick for a very, very long time. I had 2 cases of spinal meningitis that were 10 years apart, which is how the doctors traced it back. So I had, many surgeries. I was in the hospital a lot. I had very, very weak an immune system, but this is how I looked. So I would go into the doctor and they would say, "Look at you. There's nothing wrong with you." And believe it was in your head. And over time, you start believing it's in your head. So, and actually it was. So Lyme disease, at least what the Western medicine believes it to be, there's all kinds of stories out there. It is a bacteria, and it's usually transmitted by a tick, but oftentimes now it can be transmitted multiple ways. So it is a corkscrew bacteria. So it literally, what it does is it screws into your tissues and organs, and over time it proliferates through the system. That's why there is something called acute Lyme, which is when you get the Lyme, you maybe get a bullseye, you go get antibiotics, and you're good to go. Most people end up with late stage Lyme because it's usually missed. So more than 80% of people don't get the bullseye rash. I certainly didn't. So there was no sign other than I was sick a lot, a lot of flus, a lot of respiratory infections, all kinds of things. And like I said, the big clue was once I got the second case of spinal meningitis, because it was in my brain. So it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it goes in your brain, and it's called neuro-Lyme. So it causes your brain to swell. By that time, obviously, not only did I have Lyme, I had a lot of co-infections. So Lyme is a weird bacteria. It starts attracting all these, I had parasites and Ehrlichia and Rocky Mountain spotted fever and Bartonella and Babesia. So basically, by the time I was diagnosed, I was pretty much a dead woman. And the doctors eventually said, there's nothing we can do.
Oh, wow.
Kind of knew in my heart that there was a root of it that was in my control. And I went to see, this was at the very, very end. I couldn't walk. Mike, my business partner, was there with me. And I sat down with one of the top infectious disease specialists in LA. And he said, yes, you have Lyme disease. Yes, it's very serious. But your biggest issue, the root of all of this, is trauma. When he said that, I was like, oh my God, okay, I really understand that. For me, I had a lot of trauma in my life and a lot of abuse, and was very repressed and suppressed at an early age. So a lot of that stuff, when it gets stuffed down for too long, I didn't ever have therapy in my life until I had a breakdown. I was in a terrible, terrible marriage. And I literally broke in two after being mistreated for a very long time, and really allowing myself to be mistreated because I grew up that way. So I didn't know anything different. So for me, I knew when he said that I had the power to heal it. And, many illnesses start in a more emotional way. The way trauma works, I've done a lot of work in trauma since that time. And so trauma, it bypasses our conscious memory and it just gets stuffed down into our cells. And the deeper the trauma, the more it gets stuffed down. So we're holding that in. And I had a lot of trauma. So the trauma for me was what was the root of what was attracting all the illnesses. So I'm not going to tell anyone I know how to heal Lyme disease, because I don't. I know how I healed it. I knew in my heart that I had the power to heal myself, and I did.
And so what kind of treatment, what kind of counseling, what kind of trauma counseling did you do? I mean, how did you do that?
Initially, I was working with medical doctors, both Western medicine and integrative MD, but I stopped all of the Western medicine treatment and really just went more alternative. So for me, it was more fortifying sort of my physical body. But as far as therapy then, during this time, during Lyme, I was seeing psychiatrists as well. So there is a psychiatric element of Lyme when it gets into your brain. And I had all kinds of crazy things happening. So I got some great support there. After that, I went into therapy. I also, I was getting trained to be an equine therapist, which is really using a horse as it's your biofeedback, so you're working with someone who's a skilled therapist, usually a psychologist, and then a horse. So for me, that was the most powerful therapy. That you can't lie to a horse. A horse is picking up your energy. And so the really cool thing about working with horses in therapy is that you make internal changes and you watch that in real time being reflected back to you by the horse. So it's really empowering. And so other times you might go to therapy and go, I don't know if this is working. If it's working, what you're doing on the inside because you can see it mirrored back in real time.
That's so cool. I
read a ton of inspirational books, but there was one by Dr. Peter Levine, and it's called Waking the Tiger. And it really explains this process of storing trauma and how it's stored as energy, and how he created something called somatic experiencing, SE. I did somatic experiencing therapy for quite some time. And what it does is goes into those memories. And when you literally get in touch with a memory, then a therapist works with you to release that energy. And I would have seizures sometimes for 3 to 4 hours because they're called electrical seizures. So that energy is releasing. What he explains is humans process trauma completely differently than animals in the wild. So he talks about, for example, if you're out in Africa and you see a baby giraffe and a lion gets a hold of that baby giraffe and that baby giraffe is able to wiggle away, that baby giraffe eventually, when it feels safe, will be in a clearing and it'll shake vigorously. You probably watched animals do that. They shake vigorously and they release that energy. And releasing that energy, they've released the memory. So they literally go on and they have no memory of that happening. Whereas humans, like I said, if we are in something traumatic, we can't process what's happening. Oftentimes we leave our body and then we just suppress or repress. One is conscious, one is unconscious. And we put that into our cells. And the longer it's there, the more energy it takes to hold that in. So when we get into that memory, like I went into a memory with this SE therapist and it was on my colon had twisted into a knot, literally turned itself in a knot and I almost died. We went into that memory and 3 to 4 hours, my whole body was like literally seizuring while the energy of that memory, because I was left to die. So it was a pretty crazy time. So I had a lot of energy stored inside of me, a lot of trauma stored inside, a lot of abuse stored inside. But even more importantly, it's the stories that we attach to that, what that means about us. Trauma happens, horrible things happen to people, right? We are victims of things during our lives, but it's not the fact that you're victimized, the fact that you continue to abuse yourself, traumatize yourself, put yourself in as a victim for the rest of your life. And that's what I did. I felt so disempowered and I had no healthy boundaries. I didn't even know what they were. So getting some good therapy and, like I said, doing a lot of energy work. I'm an energy worker, but sometimes you need people, particularly with trauma, to help you to release that in a safe space.
When did you become a model?
That was just sort of organic through this whole launching the blog and then the Fierce 50 campaign and having these brands come in and saying, hey, can you create commercials for us? I'm like, sure. I didn't know how to do any of it. I certainly wasn't a model, but it happened really, really fast. I was about 55 when this all happened.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you have a place for us to gather and to feel fierce.
Yeah, absolutely. And fierce has more than one meaning. You know, fierce, a lot of people think is the aggressiveness, but there's another meaning, and that means to live with a heartfelt intensity. So, you know, we do, like you said, it's not an ending. It's actually a beginning. And if you read any of the, Wayne Dyer books or any of that kind of stuff, even Eckhart talks about it, there's a real meaning to this time of life. If you think about it, the first half of our lives is about other people, right? We're raising our children, or we're a daughter, or we're in school and it's our teachers. It's about everybody but us. And all of a sudden there's this clearing away. Suddenly there's this empty nest. And, you know, we're able to actually think for ourselves and put ourselves first and find joy for ourselves. And, you know, sometimes, yeah, they talk about this midlife crisis, but it's not a crisis. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to finally figure out who we are, why we're here, this wonderful path of self-discovery, but the real self, not that other self. It's our authentic self that we can now follow the dreams that are in our heart, not somebody else's dreams or who we're projected to be, told to be, taught to be. It's a gift. Midlife is a gift. It's a shift. It's a time to pivot. And I always say that midlife is a time when a woman stops fighting with herself and begins to fight for herself. The biggest dream I have been carrying inside of me is writing a book and doing a TED Talk. Ever since I saw Brené Brown, I'm like, oh my God, like that's it for me. And as I'm putting together my story, I was going one direction, now I'm shifting, going another direction. So right now reading, I'm obsessed. The idea when you write a book is to read a whole bunch of other people's books and find what you resonate with, so you can start like really getting ideas to how to structure your book and all of that. So a friend of mine had said, read that one. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good. It's Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Yeah, she obviously has a TED Talk. She has a number of other books, including Love Warrior. This is her latest one. And she has such a gift with words. She was chosen, by Reese's Book Club, all these major book clubs. I had shared this with my friend today who said, you got to get this book. And I'm reading the book today. I'm crying because it is this universal story of the woman not feeling, deserving of anything and minimizing ourselves to virtually nothing. But it was the comparison game. So right away, I'm like, okay, that's it. I can't write because she is so gifted, right? When you read, be it Elizabeth Gilbert or Brené Brown or these writers that are, her gift of language is exquisite. I mean, it's just, so of course then I've got my own struggle going, okay, that's it. Am I really going to be able to write a book? So I can't write like that. And my friend said something really important to guys. She goes, you're not meant to write like that. It's not your voice. You've got to write as you. It's your story. And I was like, wow, you're right. Of course. I think that's really important to put that out there. So the comparison game, I think we talked about this the last time we chatted about the traumas, the comparison traumas. We minimize our traumas. We minimize what we've gone through because someone else's trauma is bigger, the big T and the little t. It's really, really important that we do our best not to fall into that and not to compare ourselves, because there's no way to compare ourselves, right?
Right. And what you bring is what nobody else can. That's the key.
Exactly.
You just attract the people that you're supposed to attract.
Your vibe attracts your tribe.
What is your book going to be about?
The name of it's going to be Inside Grace. Part of it is a personal story, my personal journey, really coming back to life, really for the first time in my life.
Right.
Most of us are out there living in a black and white world when the world is vibrant and full of technicolor, and we do it to ourselves. So it's really going to be talking about that journey of really discovering myself, part of it personal and part of it universal. And I think that's the beauty of any great book, that hopefully, many women can resonate with my story. The story itself is different, but really the search to come alive, like to be alive. So we come into this world so alive, and then we just cover ourselves up with all these layers and stories and getting in our own way. So it doesn't mean my life is perfect now. It's not, but I have to fight for that. To be alive and to want to be alive and to fully live. I had posted something. This was on the World Suicide Awareness Day that wasn't that long ago, maybe a week or so ago. And I posted because I have had those thoughts, gone through what I've gone through. I'm very open about that. I have never taken steps to take my life, but there are many times that I have come to that point where I'm like, it's not so much that it's that I can't live like this anymore. And that's the ultimate call and cry for the authentic self to say, okay, I can't live like that because I'm not living my life. I'm not living for me. I'm not living authentically. So I'm dying on the inside. And that really was a metaphor for my life. Everything looked fine out here, but inside I was dying. So many of us can relate to that. And I posted that, and someone today said, thank you so much. This is just what I needed today. And then I responded to her. She said, I can't even believe you respond to me like you care. There's somebody out there that cares. And, people are hurting, really hurting. And they want connection. They want to be seen. They want to know somebody cares and appreciates them. We all want that. Yeah, when you're in that dark place, it will pass. It will always pass. It's a matter of holding on through the darkness and knowing that the light will return and knowing that we have the power to shine that light from the inside out. We really do.
I appreciate what an inspiration you are to so many and to me.
Thank you so much. And right back at you.
My name is Jody Filigomo, and I have a fashion blog with my mom and friend Jody's Touch of Style. And I started because, I'm over 50, and I actually met Catherine with her first campaign back when she was promoting, it was bloggers at the time, women over 50, and really as a great way to show marketing, to show companies that they should be marketing to us because we are important. We are not invisible. And that really touched home for me.
Yeah.
And I felt, I really want to be part of this. And so I started helping Catherine out, on that campaign and then with other campaigns and doing a lot on the back end and then with the Forever Fierce Facebook group. One of the things I've learned about Catherine, she thinks differently than I do. And I think it's wonderful to hang out with people like that. She has this huge picture. She is an idea person galore. I mean, I swear every time I turn around, she has these fabulous ideas of just how to make women better and how to support other women and how to get people to understand what we're feeling. And I just feel like her message is always positive and it's always one of we can be better and we can help each other. And that's why I have gotten on her tailcoats. I always love being around her because of that. I feel like I learned so much just with realizing how we still can grow. This is not it for us. We were talking about being fierce. And I remember I am not what I would call a fierce person. I was not. Mm-hmm. Fierce to me is, I guess it's more bold. Yeah. And I've never been super bold. I've gotten more bold. And I remember asking my friends because we were doing a fierce campaign and, my friends were the same way. Well, I wouldn't really use fierce to describe me. And yet any woman has a story. And included in that story are hills and valleys. And in order to get out of the valley, you need to be fierce in a way. You need to overcome. And so I feel like we all have that in us. We don't realize it, or it's very hard to put that into those words, I think. Growing up, you had all of these rules. Mm-hmm. And I think that's another thing I love about Catherine is about breaking the rules. She's out there in a swimsuit, a woman, over 60, and that's how it should be because we don't just wither up and die.
Right.
And so why can't we go have fun and enjoy life still?
Yeah. Even when our 20-year-old daughters are rolling their eyes at us.
Right. That's exactly why we should go do it.
That's exactly why. Yeah, that's right. What do you know about Catherine that you wish everybody else knew?
That she hasn't had it as easy as people think. People, I think, look at her and think, she has an easy life. Because she's beautiful. Yes, because she's beautiful. She looks great. Mm-hmm. I feel like she has a great voice in that she speaks such positive things, but her life hasn't been so positive. And she doesn't always want that spread everywhere, but I think it would give people a different perspective too. Knowing some of those things, I think it's easier to relate to because I've been in some of that situation. I don't talk about it much either because to me, it's an embarrassing thing. It's, you don't want everyone to read all the bad chapters. What's nice about Catherine is with all of this positive and growth that she's had, she doesn't just try to keep it to herself. She tries to help so many people and sometimes maybe even too much. It's hard on her, but to me, that's a very giving person and that tells a lot about someone.
I'm Lana Lindgren. I live in Seattle, Washington with my husband. We have 2 grown sons, and my husband and I have a business together. We sell door, bath, and cabinet hardware and installation. On the side, I also have a online boutique called Belong Lifestyle USA. And with Catherine, I am the editor of the Forever Fierce newsletter.
How did you get involved with Catherine?
Because of Jody. I was aware on the periphery of Catherine and Forever Fierce. Jody had asked me if I was interested in just helping with some of the administrative things. So I told Jody yes. And 5 minutes later, she texted me and, okay, Catherine's going to call you in a minute. And I was so intimidated by Catherine before I met her, purely for no reason, based on her pictures and all of that. I imagine a lot of us have that same experience. I did not have a good experience growing up with women who look like Catherine. And so I just was terrified to talk to her. I said, Jody, it'll be fine. She's really sweet, So Catherine calls me, and within 30 seconds, I knew my first impression, my perception of her was completely off. She's exactly the opposite of that kind of person. So that is how we met, and the friendship grew from there.
You know what I find really interesting is that we're always talking about judging people on their weight and on their age. And really, it's a topic of conversation we should have about judging people on their beauty, because we do.
Yeah, we judge people on their looks regardless of what they are. We automatically assign characteristics to them in that split second when we look at them. And Catherine had literally given me no reason to think she would be a mean girl or, not kind or nice. But I just was like, I can't talk to this absolutely stunning woman on the phone. She's going to think I'm just an idiot.
That's funny.
She's so opposite of that. It just shows you that you cannot judge a person on their looks.
Yeah, that makes me think of this girl from high school that I think her name was Marianne. And I hated her so much because she was beautiful and nice.
Oh. Exactly. It's like, wait,
that makes me
fair.
think of Catherine. That wasn't fair, right? You should be at least a bitch so I can hate you, but I couldn't hate her.
Exactly. That's the thing. You look at Catherine and you want to not like her, but you just can't not like her once you start talking to her because she's just so kind.
Yeah, she's very sweet. How has she influenced your life? How has she changed your life in any way?
Oh my gosh. She has changed my life so much, tremendously. She and I share the similar background growing up, similar parenting situation, similar parents that weren't very supportive of us, told us things that weren't very kind. And she's one of those people that when you're talking to her, she listens, like she's all in. She is such a good listener. And she looks at you and she's, no matter what's going on around you. I remember having a conversation with her at FierceCon, and it's insane at FierceCon. It's so busy. And it was the first time I'd met her in person. It was about a day in, and it was a break for lunch. And I went over to talk to her, and it literally, there's, hundreds of people around us. And she is just laser focused in on me and what I'm telling her. And she's such a good cheerleader. She's so supportive. She is so good at telling you what your strengths are and really reinforcing those strengths and not letting you tell her, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough for this. She just won't have it,
Mm-hmm.
Because of the way I grew up. And even as an adult, I'm very insecure sometimes about my abilities to do things, whether I fit in, whether I, am worthy of being with a certain group of people. And she just won't have it. And so it has just been such a buildup for me with having her have faith in me, with putting this newsletter together. I had never done anything like that before. And she was just like, well, I have faith in you. You can do it. I know you can. And that's just it. So she has just influenced me to take risks, take chances, not be small. I was very unsure of what to do when my children left. I helped my husband with our business, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And that was my whole world. And I loved it. And then all of a sudden they were gone. And I'm like, I'm only, 48 years old. What in the world am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? And I didn't feel like I had the skills or the talents or the worthiness to go out and do something else. And she has just really given me that confidence and, said, you can do it. And so, I credit her a ton for that, and her friendship for giving me confidence to start my online store. I probably never would have done that if I hadn't met Catherine. Again, just influenced me to take chances and realize that life isn't over when you're 48, 50. There's a whole new world out there, and you just have to go find out what you want to do. And it can be anything.
I went to the FierceCon in 2019 on a whim. It was so inspiring and really beautifully done. And the women were I think what's different of women at this age is we're a little less catty, more encouraging and inspiring of each other and less competitive.
I think Catherine draws those kinds of people to her as well. She just sort of attracts kind women that aren't catty and aren't just out for themselves and want to be supportive. I think every single person walks into that room and they're a little intimidated because it's a whole lot of women. And we've all had that experience of walking into a room of women and they're not very nice. And every single person there is so kind and supportive and interested in what you have to say. And
I like that people can curate people that are like-minded. And that's what Catherine does.
I'm a big believer in the energy that you put out comes back to you. And she just puts out this vibe.
I'm Jacqueline DePaul. I'm an engineering consultant with a physics degree and a fashion model on the side. So I run parallel careers. And I am privileged to be a good friend of Catherine Grayso.
How long have you guys been friends?
We met a few years ago through a mutual friend. His name is David Stewart, and he runs a publication called Ageist. All of my friends and acquaintances were younger. I wasn't really aware that there was a whole community of really active, creative, cool, older people, right? I was in my 40s, my late 40s, and here's this Ageist magazine that features a new person every week that's over 50 that is just changing careers or killing it athletically or whatever. And so on his website was the most amazing picture of Catherine. And I remember looking at this woman going, wow, I really like that woman. That, she's really cool. I was just drawn to the photograph. And then I met him because he interviewed me. And then he said, you should meet Catherine, and introduced us. And I was like, wow, the girl that's on the front of your website. Yes, I want to meet her. And then it turned into an instant connection. She's so great. I call her the mama duck because I feel like she creates the community. She kind of brings us all together. And then we just kind of wander around wherever Catherine goes, we go.
That's funny.
I have this picture of the mama duck and all the ducklings waddling behind her because I don't have the energy or the desire to maintain a community in the way that she does. That is her superpower. Her superpower is what she gives to everyone else. She's constantly sharing connections and resources and introductions and insight. And her superpower is just how much she gives to everybody and how much she cares about everybody. You can tell it's not fake. It's not there for social media, right?
Yeah.
She actually cares about you. It's very genuine, and she's very interested in other people. Usually that's not the case either on social media. Everyone's interested in themselves and they want other people to be interested in them. And she's just interested in everybody else. I could go on and on about Catherine, but she is Mama Duck. And I have told her many times, I just follow Mama Duck. She calls me and she's like, should we do this? And I'm like, whatever the Mama Duck says, that's what we're all going to do. Trust me. This is how we operate. So
that's awesome.
Without her, I wouldn't have met so many lovely midlife ladies. I just didn't have any friends in that age category because everyone at my work was younger and everyone in modeling was younger. My social circle was younger. I was in Hollywood, so I suddenly had this sort of built-in, very supportive group of ladies that were my age. And with Catherine setting the example of no mean girls, that's her policy, no mean girls.
Right.
Everyone follows that example. And suddenly I had other ladies that were interested in me and nice to me. There was no one in the modeling world, everyone is a competitor, right?
Right.
And then in engineering, it's in my field, at least, it's pretty cutthroat because we're consultants and we have to go out in the world against other consultants. And, here was a group of ladies that all they wanted to do was be nice and be my friend. And I was like, what? I don't know if I trust this. This was so highly unusual to me. They're all so great,
Yeah.
They're all so great. And, I've made friends and connections with people who we have a common scenario, it's really nice to have a group of supportive, friendly ladies. And this is all built by Catherine.
Right.
So I give her really all the credit, because without her, we don't have a sun to orbit around. She's like the center of the solar system. And then we can all do whatever we want. And she just applauds and encourages us. It's a really great situation for everybody concerned.